I believe he would have killed more people. He enjoyed it. He wouldn't stop. The sentence cuts through the silence like a sharp blade, and even behind bars, there's still something in his eyes that shouldn't be there. A cold gleam, a silent promise of death. This is how we begin to understand that this isn't just another criminal. This is a man shaped by invisible wars, by scars no one dared to see. A war veteran who returned from Vietnam carrying more than medals. He brought with him monsters no one could stop. You might wonder, how does a hero transform into something that scares even his own shadow? Perhaps you know someone who returned from war a different person, someone who changed after losing friends, after seeing death up close. Perhaps this story will awaken something within you. The pain of witnessing violence, the difficulty of returning to a world that remains normal while everything within you screams for justice, for meaning. This is the pain that shapes silent monsters. And that's why we need to look at him head-on without looking away. Because understanding how he became what no one else could face is the key to not repeating the same mistakes. He was a man like any other when he left for Vietnam. A young man full of hope, with promises to protect, serve, and return to a normal life. But war is unforgiving. Every explosion, every close call, every scream lost in the mud and smoke leaves invisible but profound scars. And when he returned, no one noticed the transformation. He smiled. He talked. He walked among us as if nothing had happened. But something inside him had changed forever. It's at this point that the story becomes truly disturbing. Because it's not just about crimes, murders, or blood on the floor. It's about how pain can be diverted, channeled, transformed into pure violence. How traumas that should have been treated become fuel for acts no one can comprehend. How the hero you applauded yesterday can become the monster you fear today. And that's precisely where you, the viewer, find connection. Perhaps you've felt anger, helplessness, or fear when faced with people who hurt without reason. Perhaps you've wondered why someone who seemed normal became dangerous. Perhaps, for a moment, you looked within yourself and asked yourself, what would I do if my own mind were broken, if my own pain had such a dark path? This identification creates a silent bridge between you and this story, a bridge that cannot be ignored. But we're not here just to witness the horror. We're here to understand, to seek answers in the darkness, to find the causes and try to prevent monsters from rising again. So, throughout this video we'll unravel every layer of this transformation. The man who went to war, the trauma he carried, the choices he made, and how those choices led him to cross lines that should never have been crossed. We'll confront the pain, look for the signs, and quietly learn the lesson he leaves us. Unresolved pain can become destruction, but understanding and action can prevent it from happening again. From war hero to monster. This isn't just his story. It's a warning. It's a mirror. And in the end, perhaps you'll see reflected something that needs to be understood within yourself, so that monsters like this never find room to grow. Because deep down, the solution always begins with awareness, with attention, and with the courage to stare into the abyss, without blinking. As you feel the weight of this story, and the echo of lives that could have been saved still resonates in your mind, I want you to know something important. Every time you subscribe here, it's not just a click. It's like you're opening a door, helping me bring to light stories the world often wants to forget. Stories of pain, of failed justice, of monsters who walked among us, and still walk among us, in ways you might never imagine. If you hit that subscribe button, I promise we'll continue exploring these shadows together. We'll take a closer look at the secrets no one wants to tell. We'll question, reflect, and somehow better understand what drives violence, pain, and mystery. It's here on this channel that you'll find answers others hide, and the feeling that you're not alone as you face the impossible. Every story that follows depends on you. Not just watching but silently participating in this quest, accepting that there are things that need to be seen, felt, and remembered. You help keep these narratives alive so we can continue revealing the truth, layer by layer, unafraid to dig deeper. So, if you feel this restlessness, if curiosity burns you, if you want to understand the monsters the world hides, stay with me. Subscribe. Because the next chapter is already waiting, and it won't be easier, more comfortable, or more predictable. It will touch directly on what you feel, what you fear, and perhaps what you seek. And even when this video ends, know that the story isn't over. Not even close. There are more secrets lurking, more truths that need to be confronted. And together we'll go where no one has dared to look. You approach the banks of the Genesee River. The cold mist touches your face and the water seems to swallow everything around you. You know that feeling that something is off but you can't quite put your finger on it? That's exactly what investigators felt, even before they found the first body. Small, almost imperceptible signs, echoes of a presence that seemed to haunt the city as if it were part of it, invisible, silent. Each missing prostitute left a door ajar in the minds of those watching, a void no one wanted to acknowledge, but which screamed for attention. Do you feel that tension? It's the same kind of pressure that builds slowly, that makes you look back even though you know nothing will be there. The first victims were just names in a police report, faded figures, almost shadows in a city unwilling to look into its own darkness. But if you put your ear to the story, let yourself hear the whispers of the river, you realize there are patterns. And patterns don't lie. A body found here, another there, all near the water, all leaving traces that only attentive eyes could detect. The initial doubt, coincidence or something greater, sets in. You try to rationalize, but there's something in the air that won't let you. It's the sensation of a red line, a silent warning that cuts deeper than any blade. You might think this is just common violence, routine crime in marginalized neighborhoods. But the transformation begins in the details that go unnoticed. The mindset of someone capable of viewing these women as disposable pieces, not lives, begins to reveal itself behind the scenes of the investigation. Every decision, every observation, every night spent vigil, all converge on a hidden truth. Someone is studying the city like a chessboard, calculating moves and anticipating reactions. And you, the viewer, feel the tension in every step, every breath on the riverbank, every whisper of the wind carrying promises of despair. The researchers set up what they called a war room, but you can imagine the smell of aged wood, the photos taped to the wall, the chill of fluorescent lights illuminating faces frozen in expressions of fear. Each photo isn't just a victim. Each photo is a story, a fragment of life ripped away, a silent warning of what could happen if no one understood the sequence, if no one could read the signs the killer carefully left. The pain wasn't just theirs, but that of those watching, of those who knew it could have been anyone. And you feel it, the guilt, the regret that grows as you realize you're a spectator of something you can't change but need to understand. Then comes the first revelation you sense before you see, the pattern. He wasn't just killing, he was learning, testing, adjusting his own mindset with each act. The bodies were silent messages not just to the police, but to you, watching and trying to understand how someone transforms from war hero to monster. Each disappearance, each scene, each detail is a layer of the transformation, and you begin to realize there's something inside him that feeds on his own destruction, something that grows and strengthens with each decision. And that's when the uncertainty becomes almost palpable. You begin to doubt, was he always like this? Or did the war, the loneliness, the secrets no one dared reveal shape every choice, every thought, until violence became inevitable? You feel the tension grow, the chill creeping up your spine, as you try to fit together pieces that haven't yet fully revealed themselves. The psychological impact is deeper than any gory detail. It's knowing that the human mind can bend, twist, bend, and break, and that often the line between victim and observer blurs. As you follow each clue, each silent step the killer takes through the neighborhood, you realize the story is being told in fragments, in whispers, and that each discovery raises more questions than answers. The cold light streaming through the victim's bedroom window seems to illuminate your own unease as well. You begin to understand that the investigation isn't just about finding bodies. It's about trying to reconstruct decisions, mindsets, intentions, about trying to get behind the scenes of the mind of someone who has become a monster. And in that silence, you find yourself pondering. If this was his first brush with death, what would come next? If every step was calculated, every choice deliberate, how many lives were still at risk before the pattern was finally broken? The mystery deepens. And as you hold this question, you also feel the strange connection with the observer, as if they were silent confidants of a truth hidden in the shadows, a half-open door that may never completely close. You realize that pain, fear, empathy, and fascination with the forbidden intertwine. That the story isn't just about him, but about you, about what awakens within you as you gaze into the abyss. And in that instant, before each next revelation, you realize, understanding the cause is more disturbing than the crime itself. Because the hidden truth that unfolds in layers shows that the red line isn't just out there, but also in what each human decision can carry, in the shadows we all carry. And it is like this, in this mixture of fascination and repulsion, that you remain trapped, feeling every detail, every possibility, every silent step of the monster that was once a hero. You feel the city closing in around you. The cold light of dawn filters through the dirty windows, reflecting on the walls of the empty apartment. Every object seems charged with memory, and you can almost hear his footsteps before he enters, as if he were watching you through the shadows. The transformation began long before any bodies were found. First, there were thoughts no one dared notice, small decisions that accumulated silently, each choice leading deeper into the darkness, each gesture shaping the mindset of someone who still called himself a hero. You sense the tension building behind the scenes. The city, normally noisy, now seems to hold its breath. Each woman's disappearance feels like a bridge between distinct worlds, the visible and the hidden, and you feel the weight of each life that has vanished. Small details leap out at you when you look closer. Boots forgotten on the sidewalk, a handkerchief left in an alley, laughter that has turned into whispers of warning. Each clue is a fragment, a half-open door that you can try to cross but never completely. The first body emerges like a revealed shadow. There's no exaggeration, no theater. Just the stark reality that shatters all rationality. And you realize that this isn't just violence, it's a message. Every mutilation, every detail crosses the line of human understanding. The sensation is of being inside his mind, but always on the outside, watching the horror grow like a silent flame, feeding on the violence itself. You feel the psychological impact even without being there, without seeing it, just imagining it. And that's the key. Understanding someone's ascension to monster requires approaching the incomprehensible, entering behind the scenes of fear. As more bodies appear, the entire city becomes a chessboard. His decisions are not just acts of brutality, but meticulously calculated moves. You slowly realize that the horror isn't just physical. It's mental, emotional, a distortion of empathy that becomes increasingly evident. Each crime leaves a trail of hidden revelations. He doesn't just kill. He chooses, observes, learns from the fear he awakens, transforms his own violence into ritual, into language, into hidden truth. You wonder, is there a limit? Or will this escalation continue until there's no one left to understand, to remember? And you feel empathy mix with revulsion. For a moment, you think about the victims, the choices each made, the paths that led them to him. But then, a false lead emerges. A rumor, a story that seems to justify or at least explain the transformation. You doubt what you know, feeling betrayed by your own certainties. It's as if you're playing chess with fear, and each move reveals only a fraction of the whole plan. The pain of not knowing everything is addictive. He approaches the riverbank once more. You feel the chill on your skin, the wind cutting through the silence. There's an almost imperceptible pause, and then, a gesture that reveals subtle pleasure, a smile only you could see if you were looking very closely. The cruelty has increased. It's not just the death, but the control over the moment, the manipulation of the sensations of anyone who might be watching, the complete transformation of someone who has become a predator. The cold light reflects on the metal of the weapons in the eyes of the frozen victims, and you realize, there's a pattern. But not yet everything. There's always something hidden, some decision he made, some impact you haven't yet grasped. With every step you take with him, you feel your own heart race, the adrenaline of understanding, of almost touching the mind of someone who has become a monster. You become an involuntary confidant, a silent accomplice to the terror that unfolds. And the debate arises, to what extent does society shape monsters? How much of the wounds of war, injustice, and hidden truths contributed to his every decision? You find yourself reflecting on your own morality, on limits you may not even know the extent of. You hear the river. Every sound is amplified in your mind. There's a sense of psychological voyeurism. Observing without being able to interfere, feeling without being able to protect, understanding without being able to save. He doesn't stop, you realize, and it's this realization that makes the safe fear almost addictive. The red line looms over everything, his every choice reverberates within you, and the fragmented narrative of each death and each cruel gesture intertwines with your own doubts, your own reflections on justice, on mortality. And then, without realizing it, you find yourself caught in the same spiral of discovery and mystery. Every body that emerges, every psychological detail revealed, every shadow that passes through your field of vision only heightens the tension and curiosity. You want more but feel the weight of pain, empathy, and guilt. Each revelation is an invitation to look deeper, to delve even deeper into the backstage of a mind that has transformed, learned, and made decisions. And in that instant, you realize that the story of the monster, the veteran, is not just about him. It's about the impact that human choices, traumas, and hidden truths have on all of us, even if silently, even if far from our conscious awareness. You take a deep breath, feeling the cold light streaming through the space, the half-open door still swaying in the wind. The escalation of horror doesn't stop here. And as you watch, aware of what's been shown, you know something else is about to reveal itself, something that will challenge your perception of control, fear, and justice. You remain vigilant, knowing that every step toward the truth also carries a sense of risk, and that not everything is as it seems. You enter the room and smell stale coffee and printer ink mixed with the weight of despair. The cold light illuminates every photograph taped to the walls, every face looking at you as if asking for help but unable to speak. You notice the investigator's eyes, weary, trapped in thought loops you recognize yourself in when you can't let go of a problem, their minds racing against the clock, against decisions that can't be reversed, against the next death that seems inevitable. There's a palpable tension. Each photo has a story, a fragment of life he's erased, but which still speaks through the distance, the framing. You watch as the bodies become maps of a mind that has learned to navigate fear, silence, and the city's corridors as if they were extensions of itself. His transformation doesn't happen suddenly, you've already sensed that. It's slow, insidious. Every gesture, every choice, every decision carries impact, a hidden truth that only you, his silent confidant, begin to understand. The clock seems to mock them, tick-tock, tick-tock, each second a cruel reminder that the next victim may be about to cross their path. And you feel the same sense of certain fear they feel, the same kind of tension that makes your body stiffen and your mind race without you even wanting it to. The lines between what's real and what you imagine are blurred. The cold of the room reminds you that the predator could be anywhere or perhaps inside you if you allow yourself to understand the psychology that led to it. Behind the scenes in the war room, you notice something no one speaks of out loud. There's a silent acceptance of powerlessness, but also an obsession with patterns, with fragments of truth that still escape. Pasted photos, scribbled maps, notes and newspaper clippings, all part of a vast puzzle that seems impossible to complete. You realize that each investigator is also undergoing a subtle transformation. Exposed to this cruelty, their own decisions and mindset adapt, harden. The pain of the outside world seeps into their minds, and you feel it, almost as if you were inside the cell with the condemned man, watching every move before it happens. Among the portraits of the victims, a half-open door to their thoughts stands out. A cold light illuminates a board with notes that seem more like riddles than evidence. Questions repeat themselves unanswered. Coincidence or deliberate choice? Traumatized or calculated? You begin to realize that the escalation of horror is not just physical but psychological. The predator creates impact, leaves confusing trails, manipulates fear, and plays with the decisions of everyone trying to stop him. And you feel the weight of it, each partial revelation deepening the mystery, the pain, and the empathy for what cannot be controlled. The hours drag by. Their fatigue mingles with the silent adrenaline of trying to anticipate every move, every red line. You sense the frustration, the regret that comes with it. Decisions made too early, clues ignored, opportunities missed. And in that instant, something subtle emerges, a pattern you recognize but which isn't yet complete. The psychological voyeurism intensifies and you feel part of the game, but only as a conscious spectator, unable to intervene, each discovery bringing a twinge of fear and curiosity at the same time. There are moments of absolute silence, amidst gusts of wind and footsteps echoing in the corridors. You can almost hear the veteran's mind, the mechanisms of transformation that shaped every gesture, every impulse. He observes, he decides, and you, from the outside, feel the risk that hangs over every life, every choice, every fragment of hidden truth that could explode at any moment. The controversy lies there in what you perceive. To what extent do life circumstances, war, trauma, society, contribute to someone becoming a monster? And you feel, almost imperceptibly, guilt and reflection growing within you, because you realize that the world has cracks where monsters silently form. You notice the detail no one else mentioned. The arrangement of the photos isn't random. Each face, each body, each note is a reflection of his mindset, a powerful message that only those who observe carefully perceive. And as you take a deep breath, feeling the cold light reflect on the paper, tension envelopes you. The red line isn't just about him. It's about every ignored decision, every moment when the hidden truth could have been revealed but wasn't. And then you feel the connection to it all. The predator, the victims, the investigators, you. All intertwined by choices, fears, transformations. Each second is a partial revelation, a layer of horror you have yet to decipher. His mind remains an enigma, but the escalation of horror continues, invisible and inevitable as you watch, attentive, waiting for something to move in the shadows, sensing that the next piece of the puzzle is about to appear, but still just out of reach, hidden behind the half-open door, illuminated only by a cold light you know will never completely extinguish. You feel his breath in the silence of the cell. Every second weighs heavily. Every thought you imagine of him pulses within your own mind, almost as if it were your own. And as the cold lights sweep across the wall covered in photographs, you realize you're not alone in this shadowy observatory. Others also feel the same tension, the same mix of fear and curiosity that keeps you here before these images and these stories. What if you could let a little of that out? A gesture, a word, something that connects you to this silent ritual of observing, feeling, and trying to understand. Write in the comments what this story evokes in you. A single word, a whisper, a spark of memory or pain that appeared while you watched. Have you ever wondered what you would do if you were face to face with someone capable of such coldness? Would you feel fear, anger, or something darker hidden within? Ask yourself, and if you'd like, say it silently in the comments. What you write becomes part of this space, as if whispering your presence to those who are also trying to understand the incomprehensible. Whether it's anger, shock, doubt, or empathy, each comment is an invisible thread connecting you to others who are also trying to feel, reflect, and survive the impact of this hidden truth. An outburst that doesn't need to be seen by anyone but you, but which builds a silent collective ritual. Each word is a mark, a bridge that keeps the story alive, pulsating in the air between us. You feel a chill run down your spine as you imagine his footsteps on the streets, his mind calculating, transforming each choice into a risk and each risk into an impact. Now stop for a moment and look within yourself. What word conveys this encounter with safe fear? With the pain that isn't yours, but that you feel as if it were? Write in the comments. Each word that emerges sets the story in motion, as if you were opening another half-open door, illuminated by the same cold light that throws open the backstage of a mind that has learned to play with the impossible. And when you write, you don't just participate. You validate this experience. You show that this bridge exists, that there's someone on the other side who feels, who thinks, who questions, who realizes that the predator and the investigator, you and I, are all trapped in the same cycle of tension, reflection, and silent regret. Do you write with fear or curiosity? Do you choose the word that expresses doubt or the one that reveals the feeling of psychological voyeurism that grows within you as you observe? This small ritual in the comments becomes the invisible map of the collective mind that tracks every revelation, every transformation, every irreversible decision. So take a deep breath and write. A word, a gesture, a whisper that is yours but becomes ours. Because each letter is more than a comment. It is a presence in the labyrinth of thoughts, an echo of empathy, a fragment of the hidden truth that only you, as a silent confidant, can understand and share. As you type, feel the bridge forming. The story doesn't end here. It stretches on, breathing in your words. And as your fingers tap the keyboard, you realize the red line still lingers, the half-open door still beckons, and the cold light continues to illuminate the path of revelations that are just beginning to unfold. You begin to realize as you look at the images pasted on the wall, that he's not just a reflection of violence. There are invisible layers. There's a silent, gradual transformation that no one seemed to notice. He was the neighbor who greeted you with a smile, the ordinary man who went unnoticed, almost transparent. But inside him, something had already changed, long before the first scream, before the first absence. Fishing, work, small daily habits. Everything became a mask, a ritual to maintain normalcy while his mind explored zones you never imagined. Experts call this a psychological profile. But you sense it goes beyond words. They talk about habits, routines, preferences, trivial details. But you know the most important thing is between the lines. In the gaps of silence, in the heavy breathing he controlled perfectly. The hidden truth isn't in the photos, nor in the statistics. It's behind the scenes of his mind, in the red lines he chose to follow, in the decisions that shaped the impact you feel even now, staring at the screen. And as you try to understand, you begin to notice the signs that were there all along. The half-open bedroom door, the cold light illuminating the surface of the water where he spent hours alone, the way he watched, always calculating, always waiting. You feel empathy, fear, fascination. A mixture that unsettles, yet captivates. Every detail is a partial, fragmented revelation, demanding that you remain attentive, that you never look away for even a moment. Have you ever imagined what goes through the mind of someone like that? What goes through your head as you walk the streets, silently, choosing the right moment to act? It's difficult to separate reality from interpretation. Your every thought begins to blend with theirs. You begin to feel the tension, almost physical, of being face to face with someone who controls every decision, who has already calculated the impact of every gesture. And here, between these images and these fragments of stories, you begin to understand that it's all about control, about transformation, about the mindset that shapes monsters. Stay with me until the end. I need you to stay here because there are still revelations no one has told. There are decisions he made that shaped each victim's red line. There are hidden truths that only make sense when viewed sequentially, when you perceive the pattern experts have tried to decipher, but that only someone as attentive as you can spot. Staying until the end means understanding the true impact, feeling the sure but visceral pain, and understanding how his mind became an instrument of calculated destruction. As you process this, imagine the isolation, the inability to have normal relationships, the emptiness filled only by obsession. Every fishing trip, every silent morning, every step unseen by others, all signs of a slow, inevitable escalation. And you realize that the psychological profile isn't just a technical report. It's a map of what might have happened if he hadn't been detained. It's an invitation to delve behind the scenes, to explore the decisions that shape the impact, to feel the tension of each choice as if it were your own. And you continue to feel, to reflect, almost as if you were right there beside him, observing every calculated move, every strategy that seemed so banal, but which carried within it the hidden truth of an ordinary man turned extraordinarily dangerous. You find yourself doubting, questioning, trying to separate what is real from what you are interpreting. And it is at this threshold that the story becomes more intense, more fascinating, more unsettling. With each revelation, you realize how deafening silence can be. How much waiting for the next action, the next move, creates a psychological voyeurism that won't leave you. And that's why you must remain here, attentive, absorbing every detail, feeling every risk, noticing every half-open door and every cold light that reveals fragments of what he truly was. Because it's only in this way, with total attention, that you will understand what experts call a psychological profile, but which is actually the heart of the transformation of a man who slowly became a predator. Do you feel it? His mind remains alive within these stories, every gesture, every choice, every calculated silence. And you, who sensed it before everyone else, are here, a silent confidant, ready to see the backstage unfold even further, to discover decisions that changed everything and still resonate in every shadow he left. Every detail you absorb prepares the ground for something bigger, more intense, approaching, and you know you must stay. Because there is still so much to reveal, so much to feel, and you feel the chill of the light that has not yet illuminated everything. The river remains calm on the surface, but beneath it, dangerous currents move, invisible, carrying the weight of his choices, the impact of his decisions, and the hidden truth that only those who remain attentive can perceive. And it is there, exactly there, that you find yourself, between understanding and fear, between fascination and empathy, ready to follow each step that is yet to be revealed. The story does not cease, it only approaches, fragment by fragment, the truth that you will finally feel firsthand. You feel the tension even before you understand what's happening. Boots lined up, pants wrinkled, a berth, a detail no one expected, forgotten in the pocket like a secret left behind. It's strange, almost surreal, and you realize that each fragment that emerges carries layers of meaning. It's as if he's left clues, but only to those who truly observe. You try to connect the dots, but something always seems to slip through, as if the truth were hiding behind a half-open door, with a cold light shining through just a crack. The helicopter cuts through the sky, its shadow looming over the frozen river, and you feel the cold it felt, the urgency that corrodes the mind of any observer. And there, between the hard water and the ice, the body appears. The scene is almost artistic in its cruelty, but you know it's not art. It's calculation. Every decision, every movement shaped by a mindset you're beginning to understand, or think you do. A predator who has transformed the monotony of ordinary life into an escalation of horror. You notice the car parked on the bridge. It doesn't seem out of place at first glance, but you feel the red line, the signal that something else is happening. Every detail, the car, the body, the forgotten object, becomes a connection point between past and present, a hidden revelation that requires you to be patient, to observe, to feel the impact before grasping its full meaning. And you realize there are decisions being made behind the scenes that no one will ever fully understand. As the wind cuts through the bridge and silence envelopes the scene, you begin to imagine what went through his mind. The mind of someone who learned to hide his tracks, who turned every habit into a trap, every routine into a camouflage screen. The berth in his pocket isn't just a physical detail, it's a reflection of psychological complexity, of internal transformation, of the impact that small gestures can have on one's perception of reality. You feel empathy and repulsion at the same time, a mixture that captivates and doesn't allow you to look away. And then you notice something else. What seemed random isn't. The body, the car, the objects. Everything is fragmented, scattered, but connected by a logic that only reveals what's to come. You begin to question whether you really saw what you saw, or if your mind is reconstructing the scenes with fear and anticipation. Every step is a decision, every shadow a clue, every silence a hidden truth waiting to be uncovered. You realize you're inside his mind, feeling the tension, the anxiety, the cold pleasure of a predator on the rise, even without meaning to. And you begin to perceive the psychological layers, the truth behind every action. The way he isolated himself, how he approached everyday life unnoticed, how every gesture, every movement was calculated to avoid arousing suspicion. You feel the impact this has on the victims, on the investigation, on everyone who, like you, tries to understand the incomprehensible. It's a silent but visceral transformation that leaves a trail of fear and fascination. And in that moment you ask yourself, how many times do small details go unnoticed? How often is the reality you accept merely superficial, while the hidden truth unfolds behind the scenes? Every fragment you observe, boots, pants, the berth, the car, is not just a clue. It's an invitation to see beyond the obvious, to feel the risk, to experience the psychological impact even before knowing the full crime. You realize that time, space, cold, silence, everything blends into a narrative that demands your full attention. Each element connects with another, but not always linearly. And it's this fragmentation that keeps you engaged, that awakens curiosity, that provokes the pain and empathy that only the hidden truth can generate. It's at this point that the story deepens, that you become a confidant, a voyeur, and an investigator all at once, delving behind the scenes of a mind few have dared to study so closely. The bridge, the river, the ice, the stalled car, the forgotten berth, all signs that the climb doesn't end here. The tension builds, your mind opens to interpretations, to the mystery that remains subtly clouded. And you sense, even if you don't yet fully understand how, that each fragment is just the beginning of something greater. That his mind holds more secrets, more shocking decisions, more hidden truths that are about to emerge from the shadows, ready to test your perception, your courage, your ability to understand the transformation of an ordinary man into a calculating predator. You realize that every detail that emerges is not just physical, but psychological. Every gesture, every object, every silence carries the weight of a mentality you haven't yet fully unraveled. And as you absorb it all, you feel his breath, feel the cold of the bridge, the cold light reflecting off the ice, and understand that the true revelation is yet to come. Each fragment sets the stage, each unexpected clue is a step deeper into his mind, an invitation to remain vigilant, because the escalation of horror is not yet over. You feel a chill run down your spine as the story of the past begins to intertwine with the present. Shawcross. A common, almost banal name, but one that carries a weight impossible to ignore. 2 crimes against children. You read those words and for a moment feel the confusion, disbelief, fear, anger. How could someone with that history simply return to ordinary life, free, without the world realizing the danger he still represented? You realize that the transformation he underwent, or that the war shaped, was not just physical or social, but deeply psychological, a constantly shifting mindset, a predator camouflaged behind seemingly innocent habits. You imagine the streets, the houses, the gardens he passed through without anyone noticing. An ordinary man, invisible, addicted to fishing, surrounded by apparent tranquility, but carrying a red line within him, ready to emerge at any moment. You begin to understand that the seemingly trivial decisions of each day were actually part of a meticulous plan, layers of a hidden truth no one wanted to see. Every choice, every gesture, every routine, as if he had learned to use the everyday to maintain his mask and fuel his own escalating internal cruelty. You feel the tension rise as you realize the system has failed. That justice, no matter how hard it tried, couldn't keep up with the complexity of your transformation. And it affects you because you understand the impact of this error on lives that could have been spared. Shawcross's past isn't just ancient history, it's a reflection of what's yet to come, an echo that mingles with the present and that you can feel as if you were inside the cell, feeling the weight of your own breath, the cold light reflecting off the walls, every detail carrying the promise that the horror isn't over yet. And at the same time, a strange curiosity grows within you. You want to understand not only what he did but how he became this way. What made his mind become a breeding ground for violence? What experiences, what psychological wounds, what decisions buried deep within shaped this silent escalation? You begin to realize that every crime, every clue, every body found on the ice or on the bridge is merely a manifestation of something much deeper, a complex architecture of pain, guilt, and the desire for control. As you reflect on this, you also notice the layers of ambiguity. There were times when he could have been detained sooner. Or perhaps he was released because no one truly understood his mindset. The line between prevention and catastrophe is thin, and you feel the frustration, the helplessness, but also the need to delve deeper to understand what truly shapes such a mind. You begin to see the red line in the subtlest details. A look, a routine, a gesture. Each element, however insignificant it may seem, carries a story of transformation, a clue behind the scenes, a hidden truth about to emerge. And you realize there's something even more disturbing, the feeling of familiarity. He's all too common, almost a neighbor, someone you could pass on the street without anything betraying the latent danger. The perception of normality mixed with monstrosity creates a visceral tension, and you feel your adrenaline surge. Every shadow, every half-open door, every detail that once seemed casual now carries immense weight, a potential impact you haven't yet fully grasped. As you imagine his past life, you feel the pain of the victims who will never be forgotten, but also a strange empathy for a mind that has undergone such profound and disturbing transformations. It's a paradox: fear, fascination, repulsion, and curiosity inextricably intertwined. You begin to realize that the investigation isn't just about finding the culprit, but about understanding what shapes someone like this, and you feel yourself within the process, sensing every decision, every step, every psychological detail that escapes the naked eye. You watch as the past returns to haunt the present, as old decisions, flawed judgments, and buried secrets become pieces of a puzzle that is only now beginning to reveal itself. Each element of Shawcross's history, the victims, the premature release, the silent routine, is like a cold light reflecting on the icy water of a river, illuminating fragments that, together, form a disturbing portrait. You feel like you're only scratching the surface, that each revelation raises more questions than answers, and you realize that true immersion requires you to remain attentive, absorbing every detail, every clue, every trace of a mindset that has morphed into something you never imagined. The bridge, the car, the birth found in the pocket. Everything begins to connect almost imperceptibly. You feel the weight of this connection, the tension of knowing that every detail of the past directly influences the present, that every decision made in the past was a step toward the escalation of horror you now witness. And as all this slowly reveals itself, you realize you're ready to dive even deeper, to feel every shadow, every red line, every fragment of hidden truth that lies in wait, ready to transform your perception of what an ordinary man is and what a rising monster is. You feel the weight of the silence before the confession. The air seems denser, almost suffocating. The interrogation room has no windows, only a cold light that casts elongated shadows across the table and his face. He sits motionless for minutes that stretch into hours, and you notice every microgesture, every held breath. It's at that moment that the hidden truth begins to creep between the corners of the room, carrying with it the impact of decades of poor decisions, of lapses in justice. When he finally opens his mouth, it's as if the whole world leans in to listen. I killed her. I killed this one. I killed that one. Short, almost mechanical words, but each one carries a weight impossible to ignore. You feel a shiver run down your spine, and part of you wants to turn away, while another can't take your eyes off him. There's a coldness to his account, but there are also fragments of pain. Not his own, not exactly, but the sense of what he's internalized during years of isolation and silent observation of the world that ignored him. He admits to 10 deaths, enumerating them almost as if he were reviewing a list in an old notebook, pages yellowed with age. But you sense the fissure, the gap in his memory, or perhaps in the truth. One death is left out. You feel the tension growing because what he didn't say echoes louder than everything he confessed. It's as if the silence itself is charged with malice, inviting you to look more closely, to read between the lines, to question what really happened, and what might still be hidden, waiting to be discovered. As he speaks, you begin to see the transformation that has occurred in his mind. The mindset of an ordinary man, the one you've come to know through the experts' profiles, is no longer enough to explain what he's become. Every crime, every silent choice over the years, every seemingly trivial detail now takes on new meaning. You begin to understand that the decisions he made, the risks he took, were part of an invisible escalation, an architecture of violence that unfolds in layers, where every act, every gesture carries a hidden truth, an intention you have yet to decipher. And then you realize something deeper, almost whispered in the air. The confession isn't just about the bodies, it's not just about justice or punishment. It's about the psychological impact he caused, about the pain that spread beyond the victims, reaching everyone who crossed his path. You feel the tension of understanding that his every act left an invisible mark, a shift in the perception of safety, an unease that infiltrates the daily lives of those who never knew him personally. There's a brief moment when he looks at you, or where you imagine he looks, and you sense the conflict, the ambiguity, the doubt. He almost seems to be seeking approval, or perhaps the confession is a way to relieve an internal burden no one else could carry. You sense the complexity of this transformation, the mix of remorse and coldness, of the desire for control and psychological relief. You realize you're witnessing not just a tale of deaths, but an emotional spiral unfolding in the mind of a man who has learned to wield his own silence as a weapon. As he finishes speaking, you notice details that had almost gone unnoticed: a cold light reflecting off the wall, a half-open door letting in the distant sound of footsteps, the clock ticking a rhythm that seems out of sync with the outside world. Everything connects, and you feel the red line, the tension that won't dissipate, and the certainty that this confession is only a layer of the truth. There's more, something that hasn't yet been revealed. A story that still lurks in the shadows behind the scenes of his mind, and that you're about to uncover fragment by fragment. And as the interrogation room remains silent, and you breathe every word, every pause, every fragment of regret or coldness, you realize you're facing a brutal turning point, a crossroads between what has been done and what is yet to be revealed. And you understand, almost viscerally, that the thread of the narrative doesn't break here. It merely tightens, gripping you even tighter, preparing your senses to perceive every detail to come, every trace of the mind that has become a silent predator. You then feel the implicit invitation. Delve into the next layers, decipher the clues, feel the weight of what was left unsaid, understand the impact of each decision. And in the midst of this whirlwind, you begin to question. To what extent do you truly know someone, even someone who appears human on the outside but monstrous on the inside? Each answer seems to raise more questions, and each silence seems to carry more truth than any confession. What he didn't say, you realize, could be the key. A detail that changes everything. And you feel like you're about to walk through another half-open door, into another cold light, down a corridor where the red line is ever present, waiting to reveal something you haven't yet fully grasped. The story fragments, reveals itself, and hides itself, and you're with it, every breath, every thought, every shiver, connected to the next step in a mind that has become a labyrinth you're only just beginning to explore. As you absorb every fragment of this confession, you feel a chill permeate the room, and realize there are still secrets, hidden pieces on the board you've barely begun to explore. You want to know more, feel the red line approaching, and understand that every detail that emerges now could change everything you thought you understood. And this is where you need to be alert, because these stories don't end on their own. They expand, multiplying in the silent corridors, in forgotten archives, in the backrooms no one reveals. You don't want to miss the next steps. You don't want to let the truth slip through the cracks of his mind before you can understand each layer. If you feel this way, if tension and curiosity are burning within you, then there's something you can do right now to stay by my side. Sign up. Not as an empty gesture, but as a silent promise between us that you'll follow every revelation, every piece that fits together, every cold light that illuminates the hidden truth. Because with each entry you strengthen this space where forbidden stories, buried secrets, and final confessions never disappear. Here your presence matters. Each new story depends on who decides to stay, on who understands that the unknown deserves to be explored. Every death, every step, every decision within these dark minds, you will discover together. And as you breathe, feeling the darkness closing in, his mind open like a labyrinth before us, and knowing there's still something, that last untold death, that silent gesture that changed everything, waiting to be revealed, you realize this is only the beginning. That every shadow, every sigh that crosses the room, still holds questions that only those who pay attention can unravel. Your registration isn't just a click. It's a pact. A path to continue unraveling. And you feel it. The promise that even in the darkest moments, there's someone by your side sharing every discovery, every thrill, every hidden truth yet to emerge. Now every step forward depends on you. And the next layer of mystery is already shifting, ready to reveal itself, slowly, almost whispering for you to perceive. Every detail will be yours to unravel, every silence, your company to interpret. And what comes next is closer than you imagine. And then you feel the weight of the courtroom spreading across your chest. Every glance cast in his direction carries a pent-up expectation, a doubt suspended in the air. You realize you're facing a mind that has learned to navigate between good and evil, and now tests the limits of human understanding. He moves calmly, almost rehearsed, as if every word, every gesture were a calculated decision. The defense insists on painting madness as a backdrop, whispering stories of trauma, half-open childhood doors that no one could close, silent screams that echoed in empty rooms. But you, on the other side, feel the truth pulsing more acutely. He knew exactly what he was doing and where every piece of reality hid. As lawyers discuss legal terms and witnesses recount vague details, you notice the cracks in the discourse. There's something else that's not being said, something only his mind carries, hidden in the shadows of the courtroom's backrooms, in the corners of your memory. You imagine the chill of the light streaming through the courtroom windows, the red streak hanging in the air, the feeling that every decision made there shapes not only the sentence, but your own perception of what's possible in the human mind. And you wonder, to what extent can evil mask itself as innocence? To what extent does psychological fragility justify acts that defy any logic of morality? You feel the transformation unfolding slowly, as each account of abuse, each detail of abandonment, creates layers of simultaneous empathy and revulsion. The mindset of a man capable of manipulation, concealment, and creation of a labyrinth of pain unfolds before you, and you can't help but feel the impact. The judge strikes the gavel, but not conclusively. There's room for doubt, for the subtle controversy that builds in your mind. You realize that every twist behind the scenes, every statement, every strategic silence, is an invitation to delve deeper into the darkness surrounding this man. The hidden truth reveals itself in flashes, small glimpses of revelation that you can only piece together bit by bit, like pieces of a puzzle that seems intentionally incomplete. You follow his every gesture, every breath that mingles with the tension in the room. You feel the weight of the past decisions that led him to that moment, and you notice how the impact of those choices reverberates not only in the present, but in what history holds for you. You feel empathy, albeit reluctantly, and unease grows as you realize that the line between insanity and evil is thin, slippery, and perhaps he himself drew it to confuse everyone around him. As the witnesses leave, you sense the silent theater that continues. He observes, assesses, adjusts. Each glance is a measurement, a probing, and you understand that you are not merely witnessing a trial, you are penetrating the corridors of his mind, the spaces where decisions were made, where transformation began, and where the hidden truth lurks, waiting to be uncovered. And amidst this whirlwind of words, accusations, and silences, you feel a twinge of doubt. What if there's still something that neither the police nor the lawyers nor you can reach? A final layer of secrecy, a final confession that refuses to be revealed, but which you can almost touch with your fingertips. If you concentrate hard enough, allow yourself to feel every sigh, every shadow, every detail that escapes common perception. The courtroom slowly empties, but his presence lingers, like a cold light that pierces the room, marking every decision you've yet to discover. And you realize you're only just beginning to grasp the magnitude of his mind, the true impact of every choice he made, and the red line that still lingers silent on your own understanding of what's real and what can be manipulated. As you observe, feel, question, you realize that this isn't just one man's judgment, but a mirror of what we can all hide, ignore, or confront. And in the silence that remains, you understand that the story isn't over yet. Every shadow, every secret, every revelation will expand, and you are there, a silent confidant, ready to feel the next step of darkness unfold. And even with the sentence passed, the echo of what he did doesn't fade. You feel the weight of time passing through the empty prison corridors, the cold light reflecting off the walls as his every decision reverberates in your mind, in you, as if you too carry a silent responsibility for having witnessed it. He passed away in 2008, but the shadows remain, long and stretched, slippery between memories of frozen bodies, boots in the snow, and glances that should never have crossed the world. You sense how his mind worked. Doors half open to traumas no one ever closed, gaps in morality that allowed dark decisions, and the impact of every choice he made ripples beyond the cell, to his own perception of justice and danger. There's a detail no one told you, a whisper behind the scenes, a hidden truth that still shines behind the courtroom curtains, and you feel the tension of it seep into your every thought. The images of the victims appear in your memory like intermittent flashes, each with a frozen face, a fate interrupted, a body that had no choice. And you feel empathy, albeit reluctantly, mixed with the fear that if that night on the bridge hadn't happened, the story would have continued, perhaps to this day, invisible, silent, ready to hide from any investigation, ready to nestle into the routine of ordinary people. Each missing woman is now a reminder of how evil can move stealthily, like a shadow you sense but don't see. And you begin to question your own perception of security. To what extent can we trust systems, judicial decisions, apparent truths? Was it captured by chance, luck, or a chain of decisions that perhaps no one fully understands? Every detail invites reflection. How many opportunities for intervention were missed? How many ignored signals could have changed the course of everything? You feel the frustration, the collective regret, the void that cannot be filled with easy answers. But there's also a strange fascination. You realize you're observing not just the crime but the transformation of a man, the construction of a mindset capable of manipulating, concealing, and repeating patterns that escape common comprehension. There's a meticulous perversity behind every move, a silent precision that leaves an invisible trail of impact, marking your consciousness and that of everyone who crossed paths with him, directly or indirectly. And yet, the feeling of psychological voyeurism mingles with empathy. You wonder if you could have done something, if you would have realized sooner, if you would feel the same tension if you were in the courtroom before him, watching every reaction, every calculated pause, every silence that says more than words ever could. You sense the fine line between insanity and evil, and realize that perhaps not even he can fully decipher the limits of his own mind. Time passes, but the traces remain. Boots left in the snow, frozen bodies, gazes no one will ever see again. The story ends only on the surface, but you sense deep down that something is incomplete, that a final piece of the puzzle has yet to be revealed. And even knowing he will no longer act, that the bridge has fallen silent, that the sentence has been carried out, you feel the echo of the red line, of the hidden truth that never completely disappears. And in this seemingly endless silence, you realize there's always a next layer, a new revelation hidden between the lines, something waiting to be unveiled. You feel the impact of each decision, the transformation of each mind that encounters that story, and the disturbing certainty that not everything that seems resolved is truly over. It's a silent invitation to delve even deeper, to follow each shadow, each secret, each decision that echoes through the half-open doors of the human mind, and it's there, in that space between reality and interpretation, that you realize the story is never truly complete. And as you absorb all of this, feeling the weight of the silence and the doors that never quite closed, I want you to do something simple. Comment here, "I'm with you until the end." It's not just a phrase, it's a gesture, a way of saying that you, too, have perceived the hidden truths, that you felt the impact, that you've allowed yourself to enter this space where justice and mystery meet. If this touched you, leave a like. It's not just about the numbers, it's a silent signal that you want to keep exploring, that you want to be alongside those who unearth the behind-the-scenes details and decisions no one else dares to reveal. Every gesture you make here is a step within the same shadow we walk together, within that tenuous thread that connects curiosity, fear, and empathy. And you know, there's a video right there, right next to it, that complements every detail you just saw. It's worth following along with me because the story doesn't end here. Each revelation builds on the next, each echo of the past you felt comes back with a vengeance. It's as if the bridge continues, dark, icy, but with something still to be discovered. So, make your presence felt, feel this tension with me, and let the next layer of this hidden truth appear before your eyes. The feeling that not everything is over, that you carry now. And only those who allow themselves to continue will discover what was truly behind that silence that never died.